Hey everybody, thanks for stopping in and joining us on our live coverage on what is now Hurricane Delta. Time now is 9:35 Eastern Standard Time. I'm Chief Meteorologist Leslie Hudson for My Radar. Going to jump on here. We're expecting another update from the National Hurricane Center in about 90 minutes, but I decided to go ahead and do this because, as you may know or may not know, Delta was upgraded to a hurricane just a short while ago, and we still are getting data from the hurricane hunters as we speak. So there's some info I can show you, and we'll get a new path from the Hurricane Center relatively soon, as I mentioned, in about 90 minutes. But I at least wanted to let folks know that we're, of course, got all cylinders running today and over the next 5 days as we track Delta's every move. And it is scheduled to be the 10th named storm to hit the United States in this hurricane season, which would break a record that stood back from 1916, over 104 years ago. So all things are looking like this is going to indeed be what's going to happen by Friday. A couple of things still have to play out, and timing of that, and of course a final landfall, all has yet to be determined. But let's take a look at the app first, and we'll show you what's going on. I've got the wind layers toggled on, as well as our high def radar. So Matt, if you want to go ahead and take that full screen, and Matt Hyland joining me, pushing the buttons, as we say tonight. We'll take a look what's going on. So there's two features I'm going to point out first. The first, of course, is Delta, which is in the center of your screen, a very compact and already looking like an impressive hurricane. The official wording from the Hurricane Center: this is a rapidly strengthening hurricane, the moniker that we don't like to hear. And then on the upper left-hand side of your screen over by Cancun, just to the north and west of that, is what's left over of Gamma. That one, of course, expected to become a post-tropical cyclone. But it's interesting that it looks like some of the modeling here could actually get Delta very near where Gamma was, or currently is, in just a few days. So as I pull out here a little bit, you can see that there has been winds coming out of the north in the Gulf of Mexico, kind of pulling back around into Gamma. That's helped to kind of shred that system apart. But as you focus back down into the Caribbean, you can see that we do have a little bit of a southerly flow coming in down south and to the east of Central America. But what's interesting, again, is that we're seeing some impressive thunderstorm activity with this particular cyclone, and it is expected to continue to intensify. So one of the reasons I wanted to jump on here tonight is that I wanted people to know that if you wake up tomorrow morning and there is a major hurricane, which probably is not likely, but is certainly not outside of the realm, that we could potentially see another burst of convection here. I don't think we'll go from a Category 1 to a Category 3 through the overnight, but I do think we're going to see more strengthening tonight. So I wanted to come on here, let folks know that potential is there for more strengthening. And of course, what does that mean for the northern Gulf Coast, who is already hurricane weary, and it has had plenty so far. Unfortunately, a lot of the modeling indicating that anywhere from the Florida Panhandle all the way over to Texas are in play, and we'll get into all that coming up in just a second. So Matt, let's switch over to WSI, and we'll take a look at the radar. And of course, nothing going on in the Gulf of Mexico. There's an old frontal boundary that's kind of draped across the state of Florida. That's been triggering a lot of rain across the state of Florida the last couple of days. But we've also seen some of the thunderstorms and some of the high cirrus from Gamma come over to the state of Florida. I'll show you that in just a second. But here's a quick look at the live sweeping radars, just to let you know that, again, all is quiet here. It'll be a couple more days before, of course, Delta gets into the Gulf of Mexico, gets close enough for the radars to pick it up. But nonetheless, there is a look at that very healthy hurricane. And again, all indications that it will continue to strengthen. So let me zoom in a little bit here. Let's take a look at the cloud deck and that central dense overcast. And we can already see some features here that would, again, indicate something that's trying to get stronger. So here's my handy dandy pointer. Center right about there. You can already see some banding features, and the hurricane hunters are currently inside Delta right now. They're saying there is an eye that has already formed that is open on the south side. It's about 20 nautical miles across. That is expected to close off sometime tonight or tomorrow. And again, already seeing a very tight and compact hurricane here. The winds of the hurricane strength extend out about 15 miles from the center. Tropical storm force winds extend out about 70 miles from the center. But some of the things that we look at, again, some of those outer bands here and some of this, the outer periphery over here, just indicating that, again, it's a becoming more concentric, more organized as we head into tonight. And of course, that is the concern that it will get even stronger as we head through the overnight. So current information from the Hurricane Center: sustained winds 75 miles an hour. Pressure dropped pretty significantly today, you guys, now down to 980 millibars. There's the coordinates: 16.5 north, 79.6 west. Moving west-northwest at 8. And that movement is expected through tomorrow and over the next 2 to possibly 3 days, because there's a ridge of high pressure. I'll show you that in the water vapor in just a second, that should steer it generally towards Mexico. And because of that, and we've seen a couple of shifts in Delta's positioning today, further towards the south, that has indicated that there could be some more shift towards the left, and the Hurricane Center has issued hurricane warnings for the tip of Mexico in the event that Delta gets close enough that it's going to be a direct player for that part of Mexico in the Yucatan area. So we'll see if that happens. The official forecast, you guys, pretty scary when you see winds sustained at 120 miles an hour on Wednesday. Again, we do want to caution that this is the current path and the current intensity. Things could shift towards the weaker side or towards the stronger side. But the one of the concerns that we have anytime we get a cyclone that develops in the Caribbean this time of the year is just how warm those ocean temperatures are. So they're averaging about 86 to 87 degrees Fahrenheit through the Caribbean, and actually Delta is forecast when it passes in the channel there between the Yucatan and the tip of Cuba. That's where the warmest waters will be, and so we're anticipating some intensification at least until then. Then there's some indication that there might be a little pool of some cooler sea surface temperatures once it gets into the Gulf. What's unknown is whether that will have any direct impact on this hurricane or not. And then, of course, going through the Gulf of Mexico for a few days with that potential to get stronger. Now, as it gets closer towards the U.S., the current thinking is that it will get a bit weaker. There's going to be some wind shear that will likely interplay with some of the intensity forecasting of this hurricane. But again, all of that's got to come together, you guys, in the next 4 to 5 days. So that's why we, again, want to tell the folks anywhere from the Florida Panhandle all the way over to Texas still have got to keep an eye on this, because you can see the outer cone here, again, through parts of Florida and into extreme eastern Texas. Remember, the cone of uncertainty and the actual red line that we tell you not to focus on is just the actual center of the hurricane's forecast, the actual eye. So hurricanes that are large in diameter, this one currently not that large in diameter, but if it does grow in size, that would mean more people would be impacted by Delta as it approached the Gulf Coast. But indications are that it is going to be another Gulf Coast hurricane, unfortunately, for the folks that had to deal with Laura, had to deal with Sally, and it looks like Delta, unfortunately, going to be, at this point, in this stage in the game, going to be a factor for Louisiana. Too early to say that for sure, you guys, because again, we're talking about a lot of things could happen if Delta stalls. Once it gets into the Gulf with weak steering currents, then it could be more of a game for Alabama or Florida. That's why that's in play. If the forward speed picks up, it would be more of a western Louisiana, eastern Texas scenario. So again, there's a wide range of geography here that is still in play, but anywhere in this area needs to make those preps and start those preparations that you do, restocking your hurricane kit, making sure that you've got enough water, making sure your meds are up to date, making sure you've got a plan for your pets, making sure you have a plan for your livestock. All of those things take time. You can't evacuate large farm animals quickly. We always talk about the rural areas that these areas tend to hit. I'm not talking about the marshland of Louisiana, but I'm talking about other parts of rural United States, where folks don't necessarily make the preps until it's too late. It's really hard to evacuate themselves and to evacuate their livestock. So now is the time when you're not rushed and you're not panicked and you have to get out, that you can try to make those initial phone calls, start to find out some evacuation routes, some evacuation centers that you may need to come calling on if this all plays out as forecast right now, which could potentially be a Louisiana player. So here's a look at the current warnings and watches from the Hurricane Center. And actually, this is not up to date. I'm looking at this because I know the Hurricane Center actually updated the warnings for Mexico, so I apologize. But I do know that there are hurricane warnings up for, or hurricane watches, I believe, up for that area. Let me check real quick, because for some reason that didn't update. It's a hurricane warning. So for the tip of the Yucatan, there's a hurricane warning. The rest of those watches and warnings are correct. So I'm not sure why my map didn't update. But to the Yucatan Peninsula, the tip there where Cozumel is, there is a hurricane warning. In fact, Matt, let me show that video from Cozumel, Mexico, from just a couple of days ago. This was from Gamma, which, of course, battered Cozumel this weekend. And the winds, of course, were in the neighborhood of 50 to 60 miles an hour, battering rain. They had flooding in Mexico. Things looked beautiful today because most of that bad weather has left and is north of Mexico, north of Cozumel. But the video that we're showing you, I believe, does show some pretty intense rain and some pretty rough surf as Gamma made a pass across the peninsula, and you can see it there. So thankfully, Gamma just about done with. It should be officially a post-tropical cyclone sometime in the next 24 hours. Let me look at that real quick, and I'll tell you when. Gamma, it weakened to a depression today, should be post-tropical sometime later tonight. So maybe by the 11 p.m. update, we'll have a post-tropical cyclone. We'll see. All right, so let's bypass that, and then let's go ahead and look at the hurricane hunters, because there's two aircraft that fly inside, the NOAA aircraft, and we've also got the Air Force that flies in here. And this particular run, I'm going to stop it right there. So what's interesting is, and I may need to back this up a second, because I wanted to show you that when they went into this was just before the 5 o'clock update came out. And wait, let me see here. Where does it go? And it shows the flight level winds right at 75 miles an hour. Let me scrub this timeline back and try and find it. There it is, 74. So when they were doing this patch, just before they issued the 5 p.m. update, we had a flight level wind of 74 miles an hour. So they're constantly flying in and out of Delta. They actually scrubbed a mission they had scheduled for Gamma and went ahead and flew both planes into Delta because Delta was getting so much stronger today that they wanted to focus all of their resources on Gamma because, of course, once they get into the Gulf, it's almost always, not for sure, a lot of times these go to Mexico, but it's almost a certainty that some portion of the United States is going to be impacted. So there's the two planes, and again, one of the missions was done. This current mission that I just plotted is still in play, so we'll have an update again shortly from the Hurricane Center what we're going to be talking about. I do suspect that we will see a stronger hurricane by 11 p.m. We continue to see the pressures drop. Again, impressive features on the infrared imagery. It looks well organized to me, a big burst in the convection, all indications that, again, it's a system that's trying to get better organized. Look at the potential rain over the next 3 days. Of course, between now and, say, Thursday, this will still not be directly impacting the United States. But I show you this because you can see the reds and the oranges, which, again, show that potential of 5 to 7 inches of rain. And the Hurricane Center does believe that parts of Mexico, part of the Cayman Islands could get 4 to 6 inches of rain. So again, a big rainmaker as it pulls towards the U.S. How fast it moves after that will determine how much rain the United States will get. But as you know, all of these systems have the potential to create life-threatening storm surges and flooding conditions. So again, more preparations. So much of the headlines, so much of the publicity and the coverage of these systems is the winds and how strong they are. But there's so many multi-pronged features here, you guys. It's not just the wind, it's storm surge, it's rain, it's the flooding conditions. So there's all kinds of weather hazards that go on with a landfalling hurricane, and this area is still recovering from Laura and Sally. In fact, some of the beaches just today in Orange Beach, Alabama, I know for a fact, just opened up today because they've been closed from all of the restoration efforts that's been ongoing there this hurricane season. And look at this, lo and behold, they've got another system on their hands. So here's what's going on. So we've got the water vapor, and I want to point out a couple of things to you here. Let me grab my little pointer. So here, of course, is Delta. There is the leftovers of Depression Gamma, which just is about done with. And then we've got a cold front. Let me draw that for you. And that is what's actually a stalled, let me get the right thing. It's a stationary front. And it's right about here. And then you can see all of this dry air that's over this region of the country. But in the next 3 days, we have an area of low pressure or a trough that's forecast to form over Texas. And we already have our high pressure center that's over generally in this area. So in the next couple of days, we're expecting Delta to kind of ride in between those two and kind of pull in this general direction. Some of the models, again, go this way. Some of the models go this way. And yet some of the models go this way. So there's still multiple scenarios that could play out here in the next couple of days. So that's why, you know, we say to you, continue to look at the big picture, not the red line, and look at the possible scenarios. Because if, as I mentioned a couple of minutes ago, if Delta gets in that Gulf of Mexico and the steering currents collapse and it stalls more and the forward speed slows down, that will mean more likely the turn will be later and will be more towards, say, Alabama, maybe Mississippi, maybe even as far east as Florida. However, if it stays on the current trajectory and the current thinking, it would be more of a Louisiana hurricane. If it speeds up than that's currently forecast and it turns slower, then it would be more of a Texas. If it turns quicker, it would be more of a Texas scenario. So there's all kinds of factors that have to play out in these next 4 to 5 days. But we do think we're talking about an impact on the current thinking by Friday. So that's, again, 3.5, almost 4 days from now, not a ton of time, that, you know, folks need to get ready for what could be playing out here. So that trough of low pressure isn't even over Texas yet. It's forecast to be there in about 72 hours. That's why I'm saying we all know the weather is fluid. It changes hourly, it changes daily. So when that trough actually gets entrenched over Texas really will determine how and when we see the turn between that high and that low. Let me get those. Actually, I'll show you the computer models. We'll go back to that. So this is another thing I wanted to bring up. So a lot of times, you know, we talk about the spaghetti plots a lot. You see them often. You can see them tightly clustered around Louisiana. But I caution you, when you see these on social media, and when we talk about them, I always say the caveat that you really can't focus on these trends, because this is modeling that's based on data from today. So it's based on limited information that we're getting from the Hurricane Hunter aircraft from today and from yesterday. So the scenario you see here is based on what the atmosphere, what the modeling thinks is going to happen in 5 days. But as I mentioned, that ridge of high pressure is a big player, and that trough that is not even over Louisiana yet over Texas, is a huge player in the timing of the turn towards the north or towards the United States. So today, this looks more like a threat to Mississippi or Louisiana. Tomorrow, it could look more of a threat towards Alabama or Florida, or it could look like this. But again, when you look at these plots, don't think because you see a bunch of tightly clustered lines that means, oh, they're all in agreement that it's gonna hit Louisiana, because in 24 hours or less, the scenario could be completely different. So that's how the modeling is representing the forecast today. That's my little soapbox thing, because I know a lot of people say, oh, all the models are in agreement. Well, the models are in agreement right now, but that doesn't mean they're going to be agreeing on that scenario in 2 days from now. So there's a look at the infrared again. And again, I just wanted to, let me zoom in a little bit more. And you can see a small but well-organized hurricane, and some of that featuring that, again, I'm starting to see some of that wraparound. And of course, it's not I don't have the luxury of looking at visible satellite imagery right now, because of course it's the middle of the night, but you can see that some of that featuring is trying to get all the way around here. We're trying to get that eye closed off, or Delta's trying to get that eye closed off, and that will of course indicate a stronger hurricane, a system that's getting well organized. And there's nothing really to stop it, you guys. There's no significant wind shear in the Caribbean right now. As I mentioned, the waters are actually even going to be warmer as it moves a little further towards the north and the west. So once it gets into, let me show you that. So once it gets into this region, there's a really big pool of warm sea surface temperatures around 87 to 88 degrees. So it's forecast to move right over that. It's forecast to move generally towards the west-northwest, which, well, I kind of messed up that arrow, but generally in that pool of very warm water. So that's why there's so much concern from the Hurricane Center that this will rapidly intensify. And the ship's intensification product, that is what we look for guidance. That's one of the forecast models that the Hurricane Center uses for intensity, gives this better than a 50% chance of rapidly intensifying by about 35 to 40 knots, which would be about 45 miles or so, stronger than it is now. So by tomorrow at this time, 24 hours from now, we could be talking about a major hurricane. I don't think you're going to wake up tomorrow morning to a major hurricane. I do think you're going to wake up to a stronger hurricane. But 24 hours from now, like when it's 9:54 tomorrow night, we could be talking about a major hurricane, because all indications are there that pool of warm water is there between the Yucatan Channel, and then it gets into the Gulf, and it's not much cooler there, you guys, unfortunately. But the Hurricane Center is anticipating some fluctuations. You see that in the path. Let me show you the path one more time. And you do see that possibility of it getting a little weaker before landfall, which would be the best scenario, of course, for the U.S. But look at that number, 120, major hurricane on Wednesday, sustained winds 120 miles an hour. Then Thursday, we start to see potentially some weakening and even a little bit more weakening before landfall. But again, I don't like to put this out there, okay, expect a Cat 2 at landfall when we're talking about 4 days from now, because a whole bunch of stuff can happen between now and then. Timing of the trough, timing of the ridge, timing of delta, how much of that warm water it pulls into its core and uses this latent energy to help strengthen it. Those are all questions that the technology is superior. It's better here in the United States than anywhere in the world on forecasting these cyclones, but it's still our weakest link. I always say that it's the weakest link in any forecast, the intensity path of these cyclones. So again, stay tuned. We're going to be on it this week, of course, and keeping you updated on what's going on. But there's a look at that official path. And so by, say, Friday or Saturday, inland, potentially over the southeastern U.S. by Saturday, and some of the long-range models take it in a similar path that we saw with, say, a Laura and a Sally, where it curved back over towards the Mid-Atlantic. But that's days away, almost a week away. So let's not get too far ahead of the game. Let's talk about the short game here, which is taking the time to prepare now while you have the time, and then midweek we're going to have a really good scenario, really good idea of what's going on by, say, Wednesday, Thursday of what's happening. All right, let me take a look at some quick questions here, and then we'll take the feed down, the stream down. If you have any questions, shoot them to me, or if you want to know anything in particular about the Delta, I'll try and answer them for you. Let me see if I can pull up a couple of questions here on, oh, goodness. I've gotten some weird audio, Matt. Okay, so Stacy Suma on Facebook is asking about Florida. Florida right now is in the clear. Not in the clear, but most of Florida, I think, is not a threat. I do think the Florida Panhandle is still in play. So you need to stick around and keep up to date with that forecast. I don't think the majority of the state is at risk, but again, a little bit too early to call all of Florida out. Officially, we think that the Florida Panhandle certainly is possibility to have some problems down the road. Okay, let's see. We also have Sandy Rose is joining us. Hey there, Sandy. So glad you're here. Let's see. Is it likely to hit Houston? Gonzalo is asking. No, I mean, at this point, no. But again, as I said at the top of this live stream, Texas all the way over to Florida. I mean, that's, 5 states, 6 states, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 states that are possibly in play. So we're talking about a big chunk of real estate. Current thinking is it's going to be northern Gulf Coast, but we've got to get it a little closer to the United States. So many times people will ask me, where's it going when we're talking about something that's 4 or 5 days away. We just don't know. No one has that technology to tell you 100% it's going to central Louisiana. No one does. So if you're listening to someone that you respect on social media, someone you follow on Twitter, and they're saying this is 100% a Louisiana landfall, their guess is as good as anyone else's, because at this stage in the game, you just don't know that far out. But there's trends, there's models, there's histories, there's weather features, there's all kinds of things that we can have in play to help give you educated forecasts. But it's really going to be once we've got to get Delta into the Gulf of Mexico, and then things are going to really start to solidify in terms of, okay, this looks like a Louisiana or Texas storm, or this looks like a Mississippi, Alabama storm, or this looks like a Florida storm, Florida Panhandle storm. So those things have yet to play out. Midweek, Wednesday, I think, is going to be our big pivotal day of really honing in and saying, okay, this is where it's going, because usually within 48 hours of landfall, we've got a pretty good idea where it's going. So this is the time, like I said, make those preliminary preps, get everything in order, keep up to date with the forecast, and then we'll go on from there. All right, I think that is going to do it, you guys. It is just shy of 10 p.m. by mere seconds. Again, we'll have an update here at 11. We'll put the new path up on our social media pages at 11 p.m. The fast forecast tomorrow morning that I'll be recording will have, of course, new information. We'll go over some new info for you, have some new video, and then we'll have what we've been doing for the last couple of hurricanes that have hit the U.S. We've been doing live streams. Mike Linden did one today. We also had some over the weekend with meteorologist Stephanie Lauber. So you'll have we'll have our live stream up where there won't be a meteorologist on, but we'll show you the graphics, we'll show you the path, we'll show you the radar, we'll show you spaghetti plots, and we'll show you some of our surfline cameras. So expect all of that this week, and of course more live updates as we get closer to potential landfall, which at this point looks to be on Friday. Okay, you guys, I think that'll do it. Time now, 10 p.m. Eastern time on this Monday night, October the 5th. Can't believe it's October. And we'll see you back here real soon tomorrow with more updates. Thanks for stopping in. As always, we appreciate your support, and we'll see you back here tomorrow.